But here to weigh in on that and so much more is Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, really great to have you.
Sean, great to be with you. Mercy, great to be with you as well.
Hey, Senator, before we get, I want to get to the story, and I know that you are going to have plenty to say on this, but there is a story that just has come out from the Director of National Intelligence that says Iran actually interfered in the election, that it was weighing in on behalf of now President Biden. What's your take on this bombshell story that's just breaking?
Well, at this point, I've just seen the top headlines. I haven't seen the particular report from the Director of National Intelligence, but the headlines that I've seen are that our intelligence community concluded that the Ayatollah Khamenei wanted Joe Biden to win, and that the Ayatollah authorized Iran to spend money to try to influence the election and to try to encourage people to vote against Donald Trump. I'm looking forward to reading the report, to learning what the specifics and details are. And I got to say, it's not surprising, because if you look at during the Obama-Biden presidency, the worst foreign policy mistake of the entire 8 years of that presidency was the catastrophic Obama-Iran nuclear deal that put over $100 billion in the hands of the Ayatollah. The most significant foreign policy decision President Trump made was to pull out of that disastrous deal. So, of course, the Ayatollah wants the administration that is going to give him billions of dollars versus the administration that stood up and employed maximum pressure to cut off the cash. And it's worth remembering, the Ayatollah routinely leads chants of death to America and death to Israel. And if history teaches you anything, it is that when someone tells you they want to kill you, you should believe them.
Okay, well, Senator, we know that this might be payback time for Biden, considering that the Ayatollah has, in essence, helped him out in this election. But let's shift gears here. We know that Biden is very weak on the border. You just announced that you're heading down with Senator Cornyn for a CODEL coming up. And so talk to us on why we're seeing this overwhelming surge of migrants that are coming through the border and the stress that it's putting on our Border Patrol agents.
Well, sure. As you noted, I've teamed up with John Cornyn, and the two of us have invited our colleagues to come down to Texas, come down to the border. There are going to be a number of senators next week that fly down with us to visit the border. We're seeing an absolute crisis unfold. It is a humanitarian crisis, it is a national security crisis, and it is a health crisis that are all unfolding. And it is the direct result of policy mistakes and decisions made by the Biden administration. So Joe Biden came in, and one of the first things he did was halted all construction of the wall. He then reinstituted catch and release, so that when we catch illegal immigrants, they now release them, say, hey, you got a court date sometime in the future, hope you show up. A whole bunch of them don't. He also ended the Remain in Mexico policy. It was a big foreign policy and immigration victory that President Trump had won, where when you have Central American migrants that cross through Mexico and were seeking to come into America, the government of Mexico agreed to keep them in Mexico while their claims were proceeding here. And that ending catch and release and the Remain in Mexico policy together had dramatic success reducing the number of illegal immigrants crossing the border. Well, Joe Biden ended that policy, and as a result, we're seeing a dramatic increase in illegal crossings. And the group in particular that's spiking dramatically is unaccompanied minors, because the Biden administration announced if you're a kid and you're alone, you can stay, and they're going to let you stay and let you go free. And the predictable results of that is that the number of children coming is going up and up and up. And we saw 4 years of kids in cages, kids in cages. Well, those cages had been built by Barack Obama, and now new cages are being built by Joe Biden. And I got to tell you, I've visited those detention facilities many times. I'll be there next week with a group of senators. And the kids who are being brought in, they're being brought in by human traffickers. These traffickers are violent criminal cartels. They are subjecting these children to physical abuse, to sexual abuse. No one who cares about humanity, who cares about compassion, would want little boys and little girls in the custody of human traffickers. That's what the Biden administration is doing, and they refuse to even acknowledge it's a crisis as it gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. Senator, I hope, can you stick around for a moment? We got a lot to get to on the border. Plus, I really want to get your take on this unbelievable Washington Post walk-back story. Yeah. If we can do that, we'll bring you back right after this break. All right, we're joined back by Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. Senator, I want to get back to the border. But before I do, this Washington Post story, this idea that they said, the president said, find the fraud, and now we get a recording and he didn't say find the fraud. I think the fraud is easily found at the Washington Post. You've seen this firsthand through your runs in public office. I don't understand. I mean, let's just put it this way. What is your reaction? Let's keep it simple.
Well, look, one of the most consequential results of the Trump presidency and the age of Trump is it revealed the absolute dishonesty of the so-called mainstream media. President Trump, in a very real sense, broke the media. And they now, you remember 5 years ago, reporters and media outlets used to argue that they were impartial, that they were not biased. Nobody makes that argument anymore. No. They don't even pretend because they hate Donald Trump so much. They're foaming at the mouth. Look, the quote of find the fraud in that Washington Post article, that wasn't just a little detail, a little aspect. That was the bombshell, damning accusation. It was the center of the story, and it turned out to be complete and total BS.
Yes.
And they either didn't know or didn't care. And by the way, this is not just one story. That BS quote became one of the central pillars of the Democrats' impeachment case against Donald Trump. In the Senate, we had an impeachment trial where the House managers argued based on this Washington Post story. And then months later, when they have the audio tape evidence, they're like, okay, I guess we got to admit it. And it's a quiet little admission. Yeah, you know, that whole thing we said, never mind, totally false, complete baloney. And, you know, the old line that a lie can make it around the world before the truth even gets its shoes on. In this case, the correction gets no attention, but they pounded the living daylights out of the lie for months. And it's part of a pattern. Somehow their lies only go in one direction.
Yes.
They wouldn't do this about Joe Biden. They won't cover bad stuff about Joe Biden. But for the candidates they hate, they're willing to go. If it's salacious, if it's damning, it's the news, and we'll worry about the facts later.
Well, what's shocking, Senator, is that they're simply happy. The liberal media is simply happy by getting a 6-second soundbite from President Joe Biden. But I do have to say, the media has done a fairly good job of covering the border crisis, and asking the tough questions to the White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, where they continually press her on what they call the border crisis, what Jen Psaki says is a big problem. So let me ask you a question here. For those who live outside of Texas, obviously you're dealing with this border issue day in and day out. Why should we all care about the issue? Why should these other states care about what's happening at the border, and what impact will it have on them?
Well, it is opening up a deluge of illegal immigration. The Secretary of Homeland Security today put out a statement that said that the volume of apprehensions of illegal immigrants is the highest this country has seen in 20 years. Number two, it's in particular prompting a deluge of kids, of young kids coming in who are being physically abused, sexually abused. You know, during the Obama administration, I went to one of those detention facilities where they described how the cartels would put a gun to the head of a child and force the child to cut off the fingers or ears of another child. Because what happened is parents in Guatemala and Honduras had paid the coyotes to bring their child in, and they would mail to them the ears or fingers of their child and demand another $3,000 or $5,000. And so the Obama HHS, this is who told me, was Obama's HHS, They were dealing with kids, number one, who were physically scarred and had been suffering this abuse, but other kids who were emotionally scarred because they were forced to carry it out. These are the vicious criminals that are abusing kids right now, and the Biden administration doesn't seem to care. But on top of that, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. And, you know, Joe Biden likes to say COVID-19 is his number one priority. Well, what they're doing now, it turns out their partisan politics trumps health, safety, trumps anything else, because they're releasing people here illegally. In Harlingen, Texas, the people they're releasing are testing positive for COVID-19 at a 7 times higher rate than the U.S. population. So it's a public health risk, and the Biden Democrats don't care about it at all because they view every illegal immigrant as a potential Democratic voter, and that partisan politics trumps health or safety or the economy or American workers.
Bingo, Senator. I think you just put your finger on what I've been believing all along. If you let a 10 or 11-year-old person in right now, and the Democrats have an 8-year plan for citizenship, guess how old they are and what they can do in a few election cycles. This, to me, is all about creating a future flock of Democratic supporters. They don't want to be tough on the border because they realize that they get to say they want to be tough, but they're really encouraging people to come for a reason. They want to let them in.
Yep.
I mean, is that a cynical view?
It's not. You know, there's an old joke that there's a new politically correct term for illegal alien. And it's called undocumented Democrat. There's a lot of truth to that. The reason the Democrats are so open border is because they believe the people here illegally will vote Democrat. They want to grant them all amnesty and make them citizens. And by the way, they don't even want to wait till they make them citizens. So you said there's an 8-year plan. Now, their plan is a lot sooner than that. If you look at the bill, H.R. 1, the very first bill that Nancy Pelosi's Democratic House took up, it's a bill that I call the Corrupt Politicians Act because it's designed to keep Democrats in office for the next century. One element of the bill sets aside photo ID laws all across the country. It provides for universal mail-in ballots, and it sets the stage. It mandates that states have to accept the votes from many people, potentially millions of people, who are felons and who are illegal aliens. They want illegal aliens voting now. And this Corrupt Politicians Act is designed to have more criminals voting and more illegal aliens voting because they believe they'll vote for Democrats.
It's not for the people, it's for the Democrats.
Yeah.
That's what I call the bill.
Yep.
Senator Ted Cruz, thank you for sticking around and sharing and giving us this kind of insight. It's so important to hear what's really going on and, more importantly, why. And you just gave us some great insight. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Mercy.